So it begins. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 1. I can't believe I just said that. So The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is a brand new series on Amazon Prime Video, taking place in the second age of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth, so a few thousand years before the events of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings book/movie trilogy. Now, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. You knew this if you've seen my videos on, everything involving Middle-earth. The Lord of the Rings movies, the Hobbit movies, the trailers leading up to this show. Now, granted, I haven't really read the Lord of the Rings books. I've read The Hobbit, but safe to say I'm not like one of those die-hard Tolkien fans. I just like the movies, but the other side of that is that I really, really like those movies. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is one of the greatest movies, if not the greatest movie of all time, period. And so, given all the hype leading up to this series, it should be pretty obvious that I've been looking forward to it. Now, the first 2 episodes have premiered on Amazon Prime Video. The first episode titled A Shadow of the Past, and the second episode titled Adrift. And of course, there's already so much to talk about. So I'm gonna give you a spoiler warning. If you have not watched these 2 episodes yet and you don't want them spoiled for you, you should now turn this video off until you have watched them, because I will be talking about the events that happened in these first 2 episodes. So you have been warned. And yes, I will be making videos on each episode of this series as they premiere, because I have to. It's not a choice for me. It's Lord of the Rings, for God's sake. And I will be talking about each episode with the spoilers, just telling you in advance. So alright, let's get started! So first off, I love the fact that the first episode starts out, much like the Fellowship of the Ring movie started out, with Galadriel doing a voiceover. Pretty much letting fans of the movies know early on, yeah, don't worry, we're just like the movies. We're trying to be Lord of the Rings here. And so yeah, we start off this series with Galadriel, played by Morgoth Clark, and yes, this is a very different Galadriel than the one we might be familiar with, who was played by Cate Blanchett in the films. Again, this taking place a few thousand years before the events of The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring, it makes sense. We learn a few things about Galadriel here. We learn that she comes from Valinor, the Undying Lands, you remember from the end of Return of the King? That's where Frodo and Bilbo and Gandalf and Galadriel, that's where they all went at the end. And so we actually get to see a little bit of this blessed land. This Eden, this paradise, where the light comes from the trees. It looks great. We already know that the visual effects budget for this show was insane. This is now the most expensive TV series of all time, the highest budget yet, and you can totally tell. But we also learned that Galadriel's brother was killed by Sauron. When Morgoth, the first Dark Lord of this world, took over Valinor, the elves fled their homeland and they went to Middle-earth. I guess Middle-earth is not the name of the world, it's the name of this continent on this world called Arda. Wow, okay, really expanding the world. And so now we have this war against Morgoth in Middle-earth, in which Galadriel's older brother is killed by Sauron. Which I love that they established the fact that Sauron was a follower of Morgoth. You remember in The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, where Galadriel called Sauron Servant of Morgoth? I was like, what does that mean? Oh, it means that Sauron was a devoted follower of the original Dark Lord, Morgoth. That's really cool. And so after this war, Morgoth is defeated, Sauron goes into hiding, I guess, somewhere, and Galadriel leads a group to go find him, to seek her revenge. Yeah, I get it. And I guess that's what she does for centuries. She spends an eternity looking for her brother's killer. She never moves on from the pain. Understandably, I guess. But after centuries of looking for him and never finding him, I guess the higher elves declare the days of war officially over. They think Sauron is gone, he's disappeared from all sight, so we're in peacetime now, I guess. And so in the elven city of Lindon, which I guess is not Rivendell, even though it totally looks like Rivendell, but it's not, it's Lindon. Maybe eventually it'll become Imladris. But Galadriel and her group, they're granted the right to go back home to Valinor. They can live the rest of their eternal days in peace, and they won't have to worry about anything else ever again. But of course we know that Galadriel is going to decide to stay, but that's still made for a really dramatic moment though. I mean, they're on the boat, they're all singing in this choir, I'll get to the music later. And it's building up, Galadriel's in tears, she's holding her brother's dagger. And at the very last moment, she's like right by the light. She's about to go in, but she does turn back. She dives into the water, and that's that. She decides to stay in Middle-earth, because she knows deep down that the evil is not yet fully vanquished. It's like she's the only elf who knows it. That's awesome, and plus Galadriel's a badass too. That scene where she slays that snow troll in the beginning, she's got skills. That was really cool, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, damn, okay, yeah, Galadriel, you are in fact a warrior. And so in the second episode, it's called Adrift because now Galadriel is literally stranded out in the open ocean, the Sundering Seas, and she comes across this wreckage, this group of men, including one named Halbrand. I guess they also know of a certain kind of darkness that is coming. So Galadriel's like, alright, take me to the last place you saw this darkness. And so off they go, I guess. And if you saw the preview for the next episode, I guess they end up going to Numenor, which I really can't wait to see. That's gonna be like the Gondor of this series, I guess, the Minas Tirith. Now, with all that being said, Galadriel and her story are not the only things introduced in these first 2 episodes. We have some other story arcs with some other peoples of Middle-earth. Let's meet the Harfoots. The Harfoots are gonna be the hobbits of this series. They are of darker skin, J.R.R. Tolkien said so. They live discreetly, and it really does show that, yeah, hobbits are a really secretive species. They don't want to be concerned with the matters of the big folk. They really do live by that philosophy that the old gaffer said in Fellowship of the Ring.
Keep your nose out of trouble, and no trouble will come to you.
They hold to that. However, our hobbit that gets the most focus is Nori Brandyfoot. She's a kid, so she's gonna be naturally really curious and adventurous. I do like this character, although I will admit her acting could be a little bit better. She's not bad, she's just no Lady Mormont in my opinion. But I am really curious about her arc, because she's the one who discovers, you know, that fireball going through the sky that we saw in the trailers? It turns out that it crash lands near where the Harfoots live, and inside it is this strange man. He doesn't talk much, I guess he has amnesia, he doesn't know who he is or where he's from, but he seems to have magical qualities. Yeah, I'll admit, the further the second episode went on, the more I was like, is this Gandalf? It very well could be Gandalf, because right before the series premiered, this thought came to my head. In all the marketing we've seen for the series, we haven't seen anything of the wizards. Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the others. They should be around during this time, yes? So where are they? Well, maybe this is one of them. Maybe it is Gandalf, maybe it's Saruman, maybe it's someone else. I mean, the way he's holding those fireflies and whispering to them and then setting them off, I was like, that's very similar to what Gandalf did in the films. With those little insects, he would hold them, whisper to them, send them off, and then eagles would come. So maybe this is a wizard. It probably is. At first I thought it might be Sauron himself, but now I'm pretty sure this is one of the wizards. Which one it is, I guess only time will tell. For now, he is simply known as the Stranger, but this is one of the arcs that has the most curiosity out of me, cause I want to know who he is. Jumping over to the realm of men in the Southlands, we have another story arc going on. We have the town of Tir Harad. It's populated by mankind, but I guess it's run by elves, because I guess these humans' ancestors were servants of Morgoth, so these elves are keeping these humans in check. They're paranoid that these humans might also be servants of a dark power. I'm sure these people are good people. They seem like good people anyway. And eventually we meet Arondir and Bronwyn. Bronwyn played by Nazanin Boniadi, who I remember as Nora from How I Met Your Mother. And Arondir, who I gotta say is pretty badass. I think he might be one of my favorite characters so far, although he is pretty stoic and emotionless. But for some reason that's not bothering me. I mean, he's an elf and he's worried. He's concerned about some evil that's out there. I think he's really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing his skills in action. But he and Bronwyn, they have a secret romance going on. And they find out about this darkness that is happening somewhere out there. They find the town of Horden, it's just been destroyed. There's an orc that attacks Bronwyn's home. Where did this orc come from? And what is Bronwyn's son Theo doing with what might be a Morgul blade? I don't know, this hilt of a dark sword with Sauron's symbol on it, and it looks to have some pretty dark magical qualities, and it reforms kind of like a Morgul blade would disintegrate, in the films anyway. I don't know, maybe this thing will have like the same effect on Theo as like the ring had on Frodo. Maybe it'll corrupt his mind or something, I don't know. I guess we'll see though. But for now, I guess that's all there is to say about these first 2 episodes. As far as the events go anyway. I do want to touch on the music here though, because I am in love. The soundtrack actually came out like a week ago, and I've been listening to it a lot. And I love the fact that they actually brought Howard Shore back to compose the main theme of this series. That is awesome! We all know he composed the score for the Peter Jackson movies. And the main theme, the main intro sequence that we see in the second episode, I think it's really cool. With all those little pebbles forming those designs, I think it's great. Although I will admit, I think I do still prefer Game of Thrones. Just saying. But the rest of the score is composed by Bear McCreary. He is actually one of my favorite composers working today, so when I heard that he was doing this series, I was overjoyed. I love his work. 10 Cloverfield Lane, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., God of War. The man is a brilliant composer. I love the fact that he was chosen to score this series, or at least this first season. I love Galadriel's theme. I love Nori's theme. Again, this feeling like Lord of the Rings, certain things had to have their own distinct themes, including characters, I guess, this time around, so I love it. So in the end, these first 2 episodes of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Season 1, I like them so far. I'll admit they're not completely perfect. I do feel like the show is still kind of trying to find its footing. Oh wait, I totally forgot to talk about Elrond and Durin and Khazad-dûm. Alright, real quick. I did love seeing Khazad-dûm. This is actually the kingdom that will eventually become Moria. I like Prince Durin IV as a character a lot. I mean, the actor who plays him, yeah, I am totally convinced he is a dwarf. Dwarves are really proud people. He totally captures everything I know about dwarves in J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium. I think he actually also has to be one of my favorite characters. Right now, it's Arondir, Galadriel, and Prince Durin IV. Those 3 are my favorite characters so far. I'll touch more on the dwarves next week. But like I said, I do feel like this show is still kind of trying to find its footing, but it does feel like once it does kick into high gear later on in the season, it's gonna be awesome. Because it does feel like there is a war coming, evil is stirring in the east, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. So, the 2-episode premiere of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Season 1. Have you watched them yet? What are your thoughts on them? I know they've gotten mixed reactions like I predicted they would. So whatever opinion you have is fine with me as long as it's honest. So whatever you do think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you, all 2,000 of you, for subscribing. Peace!